Good morning. This is Devin with Homeschool House Calls, and we're with the mamas today. And I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves in just a minute, but we're going to talk about our homeschool why. And I'm really excited. This is one of my favorite subjects. And anyway, good morning, mamas.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Good morning.
I'm so glad y'all are here. So let's just start with Susan. Let y'all introduce, tell where you're from, how many kids, where you are with homeschooling, and we'll get into the why stuff in a minute.
Okay. All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Susan. I am with Homeschooling Supermoms. A homeschool mama. I only homeschooled one child. I have three. My first child went to public school. My middle child went to private school, and then my youngest experienced all three: public, private, and then homeschooling. And I homeschooled during the high school years, and she's graduated, so that's exciting. And she's a sophomore, starting her sophomore year of college. And I have to brag for just a second. She's carrying a 4.0. So it's super excited about that. So that's a little bit about me.
Hey, Stephanie.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name's Stephanie Williams, and I live in Virginia. I think I'm the only Virginian in this group. I live in Virginia, and we have three girls. Our girls are 30, 27, and 18. I just finished 18 years of homeschooling, so we retired, but I've started writing. So I've written a book called that was published on March 4th. It's Ooh, You Homeschool: Help for Successful Homeschooling. And so it's been fun to start that new journey. Our 30-year-old graduated from college, and we have our grandson. And then our 27-year-old also graduated from college. She's engaged to be married soon. And then our 18-year-old, we just took her to college 2 weeks ago. So new time in our lives. You all were, it's fun to get to talk to you all and hear different stories. Thank you.
Okay, Heather.
I'm Heather Reed. I'm Heather Renee on social media. I have homeschooled since my girls were 3, and I was pregnant with my third child, and desperate to keep them busy because twins are crazy. So we just jumped right into school, and so that's been a long time now. And they are now in college. One is a last of her sophomore. No. One's a sophomore, and one is at the end of her last semester for junior year. So she'll be a senior next semester. And both of them, like Susan said, she's done all the things, but both of my girls currently are at a 4.0, both at separate schools. So homeschooling definitely has helped them to succeed and maintain it easily. And then I've got 3 still in school. I have a high school senior, a high school sophomore, and a 7th grader. So we're graduating into the teen years. So it's a little interesting over here. And I'm also a single mom. So for those of you who are trying to figure out things, it can be done. And I work from home. So kind of busy. And lots going on, lots of balls in the air, but I wouldn't have it any other way. So, yeah.
Hey, Natalie.
Hey, everyone. I'm Natalie Vecchione. I live in North Carolina, and my husband and I were blessed to grow our family through adoption. We have a son who is 19 years old, and he has a fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. And we have a daughter who is 6 years old, and she has dyslexia. And so we really homeschool so that our son could flourish. He is starting his own small woodworking business. I'm a podcaster. I also, our podcast is FASD Hope. And I recently co-authored a book with Cindy LaJoy of Blue Collar Homeschool. Our book is called Blazing New Homeschool Trails, Educating and Launching Teens with Developmental Disabilities.
And it is a good one. It's one of those
Thank
ones
you.
I recommend to people especially when special needs, because y'all had a lot of great ideas. I actually think Carla's book and Natalie's book go together really well because they're very similar but in different frames. But see, now I'm introducing Carla, and I just told you that we have 3 authors on So.
Hi.
Yes. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Carla.
What were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, well, we'll circle back to Stephanie's book too.
Yes. Yeah, Stephanie's is great too. They all work good together. I love my authors. Okay, Carla.
Hi, I'm Carla Marie Williams. Carla Marie on just about all social media. And I'm the mother of the Sensational Six. So Carla and the Sensational Six on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. You'll be able to follow along in our journey. I am a mom of 6 children. Also, blessed to grow our family through adoption, 2 of 3, which equals 6. So we have all 19, 18, 15, 14, 13, and 12. And so we have been homeschooling or learning at home for 13 years. The first 3.5 years were death by workbook. And our last 9 years have actually been interest-led learning, focusing on the interest and the natural gifts and talents of our children individually. And so it's been a beautiful ride. And I'm, for the first time, learning how to be the parent of adults. So that's new. I do have 6 books that I've written, but 2 in particular that are related to this show. And the first one is Homeschool Gone Wild. And the second is Teens Unleashed. And it's focused on interest-led learning for homeschool families.
That's awesome. Okay, so we're talking about your homeschool why. And I think what we need to do, especially for our new mamas, is kind of define what we mean by our homeschool why. So maybe everybody can kind of help each other out. Let's define this. What do we mean when we talk? What do y'all mean? Like when you say you need to find your homeschool why? What does that mean to y'all? Anybody can jump in.
Well, for me, it's the reason the day, on those days when everything is going wrong and I want to take my children and drop them off somewhere and leave them because they're driving me absolutely batty. It's the reason that keeps me sane and from doing that, or from just putting them in school, or for just, giving up on the process because it's just like, I think I'm going to go insane. So it's what pulls me back in. So that's my why that keeps me grounded. So,
it's interesting. My why has changed over the years. Or it has expanded. I won't say changed because all the reasons are still there. But originally, we decided to homeschool to save my oldest child. That was my initial reaction to what was happening in public school with her. She was a square trying to fit into a circle. And we tried schools, all Montessori. We tried all kinds of different offerings in the city we lived in at the time, and we just came to the conclusion that she needed one-on-one learning experience, and that she needed an experience that a school could not give her. It was impossible. And so what ended up happening is that it became a family thing, but it started with her. So that was our initial why. And it kind of morphed into us recognizing that our children are unique individuals created by God, and that if they're unique, then their learning experience should also be unique. And no one else can give that to them but a parent who is relying on God to tell them, who is this child? What are their natural gifts and talents? How can I help them become all that they're supposed to be? So that's been our why, even though it started as an emergency.
Stephanie, I think you were going to say something.
I was just going to say that, I agree, like, why did we even start? So our why was the same thing. I was an elementary school librarian at my older 2 girls' school, and I knew a lot of things that were going on at the middle school, and our oldest daughter was getting ready to go to the middle school. So being from a public school background, I never imagined that I would homeschool, but just felt led and had met a wonderful homeschool family through my daughter's dance class, and just watching her, and seeing her success with her girls. And so, we thought, maybe we can do this. So we brought her home, and then it just trickled down to where we brought the next one home. And then I became pregnant with our third. And so and she's been homeschooled the entire time. That was the best. That was great that I could see, her learning from the beginning, which was great. So our why was pretty much to bring our oldest daughter home, to not go to the middle school for various reasons. But then, as you said, Carla, it morphs into so many different things, and the flexibility and seeing the light bulb come on, and teaching for us, it's teaching through a Christian worldview. So and teaching to their uniqueness, and just, so you could go on, couldn't we, about all the wonderful reasons why to homeschool.
And what about you, Heather? I think maybe yours have always homeschooled, so maybe your why started differently.
Well, my why started because we were living in Baton Rouge, Louisiana at the time, and they were going to bus my kids across town to. They were going as kindergartners. They were going to have 3 stops. We started homeschooling originally because I was pregnant and I was really, really sick, and they were 3 and precocious little preschool terrors. They really were, and we needed structure. And we needed something to keep them busy. And being twins, they feed off each other. And so we started homeschooling then. But then I was going to put them in school when they hit elementary. But when they put us in that one strip where they were going to 3 bus changes for my kindergartners that were already petite, I'm like, oh no, this was working just fine. We'll do it again. Although I was pregnant again with another one. And then, that was, we had hurricanes that year. It was crazy, but it ended up working out really well for us. And that was really why we got into it. My ex-husband and I, he was very high on the academics. He wanted children like going to college by the time they were 12. He kind of fell in love with the classical model. And I'm an eclectic, unschooling, sort of schooling, real book learner. So it's the kids take after me. Yeah, but it was but then as we've gone on, because we just added another kid, we added another grade. It's what you do. It's a lifestyle for us. And so then when the divorce happened, it was the best logical thing for us is just to continue, and because we also have medical need children, a couple of them that take up a lot of time. So my daughter, when she got sick, if we had not been homeschooling, she probably wouldn't have graduated from high school. And she's at the end of her junior year in college right now. And so it's allowed us to do what we need to do for her. Again, like everybody else, you start out with one thing, but it just builds, and it really does become a lifestyle. For us, it did. And so, but I'm not going to lie, Devin, it takes a lot of commitment right now as a single mom, because the teen years, they're really busy. And so we have to think outside the box to get school done, because we don't compromise on quality. And we still use real books. And fortunately, they can do a lot of their stuff on their own. But teenage boys, you don't leave alone with chemistry. You just don't. And or power tools, or they're very creative. And so when you develop thinkers, because that was something that really was important to us, is to develop thinkers. They think, and then you're stuck with their thinking. So you've got to it gets really interesting. But yeah, so my why has also evolved, but ultimately it's to do what's best for the kids, and to give them the best of what we can, and to work around some of the learning disabilities that we have, the medical issues, and it's just a lot of fun to be with your kids and watch them make those discoveries. And even when they are blowing up things they shouldn't, it's just like, it's good. And because they're learning something, and they're building, and they're growing, and that relatability to all ages and all everywhere. They can talk to anybody. Not that they will, because like some of my boys are really, really like not talkers, but they get it. And it's just been a real delight to, and it's worth it. It's hard sometimes, juggling work, home, life, but I mean, it's worth it. So that's a long-winded answer, Devin. Sorry. So,
That was a great answer.
And Heather, it's so worth it. It's so worth it, Heather, when they're, when they are, and mine are 30, 30 and 27, the two oldest. And, when we're all together and they're telling stories about remember when, and, hey mom, this and that, it's so wonderful because you've had all this time with your children, and boy, does it pay off.
Yeah, I think for us, especially after the divorce, because we had such a strong relationship, the kids and I, it was really, you circle the wagons when you have any type of trauma of any kind. And so for us, we already had the communication. And so it was really, there were things we had to adjust to, but it was just like, we just kept going. It was just the thing we did. It was the comfort piece in our whole, because that didn't have to change. We moved across the country. We lived with people for several months. We didn't have a home, but that never changed. And so they were just like, oh yeah, well, it's business as usual. We're just like not at home. We're just in different places. And I'm just like, yeah. So, but they never did ask me to get an RV and go RVing, because they see me drive the minivan, and so they were like, no, let's just find a place and stay put, because that was on the table for about 5 seconds till they realized, oh, mom has to be the one to drive. No, we'll all be in trouble. So, but no, it was a learning experience for all of us, but it really does. It provided a structure and a sense of comfort with the kids, and because you communicate with your kids in such a different way when you homeschool, like you literally are with them all the time, and that's a good thing. But it's like you just have different levels of communication because you are available with each other. Yeah,
I think that's one of the benefits I've seen with homeschooling that I did not realize when I started. I did not realize that we would have the relationship that we have with each other, and the relationship that I see my kids have with each other. That although I have a good relationship with my family, this is like another level.
Right.
It really is.
And it's been a beautiful benefit of homeschooling.
They really know us. Our kids really know us. Yeah. And that the bad,
and the beautiful and the bad, the good, the ugly. They know it all.
Know us.
Okay, Natalie, let's. What about your why? You hadn't said anything. You have whys. You had some good whys too, and y'all have had some great benefits.
So, first of all, everything Carla said, I'm pointing in the wrong direction. Everything that Carla said, and she's over on my other side. There you go. Thank you. Everything Carla said, I agree 1,000%. That's right. Cindy, LaJoy, and I share in our book that we were both desperation homeschoolers. We started our son in private school, and public school, and hybrid school, and all these different types of schools where, just like everybody else is mentioned, we tried to fit him in a hole that he was not meant to be, fit in. And the more we tried, the more symptoms we received. So for us, it was really desperation homeschool almost 8 years ago. And then again, like Carla says, and like everybody else has said, our whys, I think, blossomed because we started as, oh my goodness, we need to do this. And then it blossomed into the lifestyle that we love of homeschooling, the freedom of homeschooling. For us especially, I think that if we had not homeschooled our son, and we also homeschool our daughter who's 6, she just started her journey. And if we had not homeschooled our son, we would not have learned the tremendous gift that God placed in him. Actually, gifts, I should say, more than one gift, but he is a very skilled young woodworker. And even though we don't know if he's ever going to launch on his own, again, homeschool blossomed that why. We moved from the suburbs we live on a farm access road. He's got an in-law suite apartment. We just bought him his own little workshop to run his business. And if he, the other plan is eventually for him to have a tiny house on our property. For us, homeschooling has just been such a huge blessing, because I don't think we would have ever known any of those gifts if we had gone any other methods.
Yes.
And I certainly don't bash any other method. Again, homeschooling, we all know as mamas, it really just, your why just depends on what's best for your family. And we have a daughter who's 6, and she has childhood absence epilepsy and dyslexia. And so her why is much different, because there's, medical management, but also we are seeing her gifts at a very early age. And we consider ourselves to be eclectic homeschoolers. We do traditional, we do some unschooling, we do just interest-led, we do a whole bunch of stuff. And I think our why for her is to continue this journey of learning her gifts, just to focus on strengths, and to do what's best for her and for our family. So her why is different than her big brother's, but she she loves it. It's really interesting having kids so far apart in age, because you take your experiences from your older kids, and you learn and you glean, and then you say, okay, this is what, our younger kid is obviously different, has a different personality. But I really think my biggest why as a mom personally is just, I love the lifestyle, and I love the community, and I love how homeschooling is growing. And I love that you, the parent, the one who God has trusted you with your kids while you're on earth, you have that freedom to say, this is what we're teaching our child, and this is how we can help our child best thrive. And I think that for me is, our why has grown. It started in desperation, and it's grown into inspiration.
Awesome.
I like that.
I love that. Okay, what about you, Susan? Yeah, we talk all the time. That's
Yeah,
why
we talk all the time. So Devin
but I'm
knows my
like, I know that
story.
Susan has more than just being the hostess with the mostest for the workshop. You're a homeschool mom too.
Yeah.
So how do you feel? How did your why?
I'm going to tell you a funny story. My father-in-law talked me into this, because I wasn't going to homeschool, because I was terrified of it. I was so worried, would I be enough? And would because we did through the high school years, and I thought, I know those are tough years. Am I crazy? And he was like, no, you need to check out these homeschoolers. Homeschoolers have this wonderful family bond. And it's so true. And not being a homeschooler, I didn't know about it, because I was like, I'm really close to my kids. I mean, I really am. And before the homeschooling thing. But man, does it morph into this amazing relationship. You bring back the family bond and the unit. Not to say that people don't have a family bond that don't homeschool. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it becomes this deep and rich family relationship. And that is the one thing that I love about it. But the reason we truly decided to homeschool was my daughter, as I mentioned, she did public school and then private school and then homeschool. We thought moving her from the public school to the private school would give her more, if you will, more one-on-one. And we knew that her strengths were in the area of English and literature and things like that, but math was not a strength for her. And so we put her into private school, and realizing that she was thriving there. She really was. But then when we got to the end of the school year, we realized that she really didn't grasp what was happening in math. And to us, math was foundational. Like, I think it was Heather that said, and I think this is true of every single person on this panel, that the importance was the quality of the education. And I didn't want her to not grasp math and then move on. And we keep moving her on and keep moving her on. Instead, what we decided was, hey, let's homeschool her, let her thrive and excel and go beyond, way beyond her grade level in the areas that she really thrives in: foreign language, literature, grammar, and let's go back and fill the gaps when it comes to math. And that's what our why was initially. It was, let's fill the gaps and let's grow her in her strengths. And as all these wonderful ladies have said, their homeschool whys have morphed or modified as they've gone through it, and things got fantastic as far as where our gaps were. But we didn't want to stop, because this amazing and rich family relationship evolved, and it gave us that freedom. Well, let's all have lunch together, and let's all go on a field trip together, and let's all, so it morphed, and I love it. And I was the one that had to be talked into it, and I love it. It's like I can't talk about it enough. It's like, oh, this is the most awesome experience. So anyway, there's my homeschool why.
You're right. Yeah.
And I think it's wonderful because, Susan, you've graduated your baby. And here she is still supporting the homeschool mom. So, some mamas, it's like they graduate their kids and they're out the door. Like, Stephanie too, you've graduated yours. And it's like, a lot of times homeschool mamas will be like, they're out like a shot, like, I'm done, I'm retired. But I love when I find mamas who'll stay. Because I know the ones that y'all know me well, I do a lot of stuff locally, and I'm always trying to pull these mamas who have such rich giftings, and they've stood the test of time, and they've walked several years. It's like, please stay, because these new mamas need to hear what you know.
Exactly. So I want to kind of touch on some. Yeah, I want to touch on something like when you brought up with Stephanie, and I love her book. It's a how to homeschool book, and I love the title of it because
it is a great title.
The title is "Ooh, you homeschool," and that truly was the reaction that I got from people when we started homeschooling. Ooh, it wasn't the thing, because I know that with the recent pandemic, more and more people are grasping and celebrating homeschooling, but that's not the case the way it used to be. And people are like, "Ooh, you homeschool?" And really, that is what has driven me to stay in here and support these mamas, is that, hey, it's the coolest thing. And I want you to learn all about it because it's amazing. So I'm sorry, Stephanie, I just kind of like, let me bring in your book and let's talk about how amazing homeschooling is.
Thank you, Susan. No, that's fine. And I also tell people, a lot of times my homeschooling was validated because I had been, a public school, high school teacher, and, librarian and grammar, all these different things. And that really bothered me, because I know great homeschool mamas who have been to college but don't have a teaching degree, have not been to college. They have the desire to teach their children. That's what's important, the desire. Yeah. And we learn alongside our children, don't we? I mean, I learned so much more homeschooling my 3 children than I ever did in school. I've learned a lot. So, I try to encourage people. It doesn't matter if you have the desire to teach your child. There's so many, there's so many resources out there to help you. And Susan, you mentioned high school. There's so many resources, so many groups to reach out to get help with homeschooling high school. I mean, I needed help with math. I needed help with science. And there were so many different groups that could help me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, Devin, you host all the time too. So we want to hear, and you're on mute, by the way, just in case you weren't aware. But Devin, I mean, you've homeschooled 5.
Yeah.
And you homeschooled from the beginning. What's your why?
My why started with, I graduated university, and it started with, I had 2 littles when I graduated. I was actually pregnant, hugely pregnant when I walked the stage, waddled across the stage. It was huge. And so Cole was 2. I had Juliana, and when I went to look at daycare, because I was going to be a social worker, and I went to daycare. I was going to have to pay to work. That was basically it. And so I look at that. And I talked to my husband. We're like, okay, I will. I had known homeschoolers. I'd been on the mission field. I'd met mamas who had homeschooled their children there. So I was like, okay, I'll homeschool, and we'll do homeschool. We'll do preschool at home. So I started. I was, we were heading. Gabriella, grab my cord. It's gonna go dead. My computer's not plugged up. So we started. Went to I'm doing preschool, doing all that kind of stuff. And the closer I got to kindergarten, I wasn't feeling so happy about sending him off to kindergarten. I was like, wait a minute, I've done this great. I love seeing these little eyes light up when he learns something. And I started getting very jealous over a woman I had not met yet.
Right.
I was like, I don't want to I want to teach my baby. And so that's how it started. At that point, I started looking at the legal and trying to find homeschoolers and trying to, at that point I started trying to connect, and then realized I couldn't. At that time when this was like 17 years ago, it was hard to get people to answer your emails because they were still a little bit like I don't know what to call them, like the first wave of mamas who really pushed the modern homeschool movement. They were a little nervous about talking to people. So here's this young gun-ho mama with a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old and she's pregnant, and they wouldn't answer my email. So then I started leading groups, and I had like not even homeschooled. I told somebody I must have had a lot of something for me to do that. So that's how I started. That's where my why started. And it's morphed, but for us, my main, I have almost like a mission statement, and it's to raise healthy, happy children who love their God. And that's my why. And I go back when I'm getting frustrated, I go back and look, or when and I'm like, oh my God, they're not making the ACT score I want them to make, or they're not doing this, or this isn't happening. I'm like, I go back to that and go, this is why I homeschool, to raise healthy, happy children, and I'm doing an excellent job. That's right. And anything else is benefit. So
absolutely,
that's my why. So
yeah, so I'm hoping that the people who are joining us and watching us, I hope that they're realizing that look, you got 6 different experienced homeschool mamas here, and every one of our reasons is different. Everyone is different. And so what is your homeschool why? Do you know what it is? And if you do, drop us a note inside the comments area. We'd love to hear what your homeschool why is. And also, if you haven't thought about it yet, I hope that you'll take a few minutes and write it down. Like Devin, I love that you've got basically a mission statement about your why.
And it's important for you to write it down. And even I've told mamas, put it on the wall so that when you have that bad day and you want to throw them at the yellow bus driving by, you go back and you look at that why, even if it's just mentally written on the wall. It's important to know your why, and it's okay for it to. And I also tell mamas, I see now I'm getting preachy. Just the desire to homeschool is a reason, and it is a good enough reason.
Yes.
You don't have to have there doesn't have to be some big, major, oh, my kid's being bullied at school reason, although that's a very valid reason. Just the desire to homeschool is reason enough. So don't think you have to have this big, huge story. It's okay, whatever your reason is.
Absolutely. So that brings up another question I want to ask everybody here. So you're saying that there are some tough days when you're homeschooling.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some tough days.
Yeah.
So you're saying there's those moments that it's kind of tough.
No.
So the whole reason I bring this up and why everybody's chuckling is we all know that there are tough days. So if you are new to homeschooling, or even if you're not new to homeschooling and you're having those tough days, I don't want you to feel alone, because every single one of us sitting here is telling you There are those moments. There are those tough days. There are those days, like Devin said. She said it so beautifully about like throwing a book at the yellow bus driving by. You know, there, there are those days. You know that there are days that you may have a bad day or a tough day, and there are days our kids can have tough days.
Yes,
And
yeah.
and
There's days you may want to flag that yellow bus down and say, I have one to get here.
you missed one.
And yeah, and
Come over here.
Just for the day.
There's going to be days that you doubt yourself.
Absolutely.
Normal.
So let's
It's
talk
not-
about that
yeah.
too. Do you doubt have there been days that you've doubted yourself, that you haven't felt qualified? And so, Devin, anybody?
For me, yeah, I spent the good part of my kids' elementary years completely doubting myself. I had a lot of people speaking into my life that were, well, you don't have a college degree. Well, you're just a stay-at-home mom. Well, you know, you don't know. And so I finally had to just do this. But I also had to realize that my biggest role in my children's life, whether I homeschool with them or I send them to school, is to facilitate.
Mhm.
And so for me, it was a mindset shift to combat the voices, both internal and external. It's like, no matter what we do as parents, we facilitate for our children to grow and become the best version of themselves. That's what we do. And as a homeschool mom, that we do that kind of like magnified, because you're taking their gifts, you're taking their not so strong areas, and then you're taking the list of things everybody tells you got to do, right? And which is why I think it's important for us veteran homeschool moms to also, sometimes we need somebody else to come and do this for us so we can reset. So for me, when I realized that, and I'm like, oh, I'm a facilitator no matter what.
Mhm.
I got this. I can do this. And there's stuff out there now in the homeschool community. I mean, like, I've written my own curriculum. I have rewritten someone else's curriculum. I have taught at many different levels of many different homeschool co-ops. And this year's iteration, I bought somebody else's program. I needed it done for me. I needed simple. And so it's like, you know, but you learn and you grow and you got to just put the doubt behind you and remember, you know, God gave you these children and he equips you to facilitate and to fight for them in whatever manner that looks like, including educating your kids. And so, and nobody said you had to do it all by yourself either. And that's another thing that was, I think a lot of us, when you come in homeschool and you're like, oh, but what if I'm not good in math? I mean, how many times do we hear that? Or, oh, well, I can't do science. Okay. And there's a lot of opportunity out there, especially now. And there's a lot of really good quality curriculum that basically they just need you to be present and participate with your kids.
Yeah.
And they get a really good education that way. And so, so that's my 2 cents on that. So
that's good.
For me, go ahead, Carla.
I'd say I was not, when we started, you know, as I talked about before we started, we had 3.5 years of dull, boring, very militant homeschool, because that's all I knew. I was afraid to do anything on my own because I didn't know if it would be okay. And it took a couple years for me to recognize, oh, I'm in charge. I get to decide what, when, where, how. And the doubt started coming in when we switched drastically from very, very, very authoritarian, you know, school at home to unschooling 9 years ago. And that's when I started to doubt myself, because I'm like, oh my God, what I had observed of unschooling in some other venues was scary, and I thought these people were crazy. But we brought our second sibling group home in 2013. And I was like, if I have to do what I'm doing with 6 children, I am going to be in the corner in a straitjacket because
Mhm.
this is not going to work. I'm not going to be able to do this. And so we intentionally took time off, um, just to mold as a family and to bond as a family of 8, going from a family of 5 to a family of 8. And and that's when we began to see our children teach themselves and see our children teach each other things that we didn't initiate. And we were like, this is what they're talking about. And so that gave me the seeing that, watching that. And my husband was home during that time. I think he had a transition in jobs during that time. So he began to see it himself because he thought I was crazy thinking about these ideas. And suddenly he's like, whoa, like, I see what you're saying. We just begin to talking and trying new things and letting go of some of the crazy, requirements that we had imposed upon ourselves and our children, and just began to relax. And that fear just subsided because, and again, here we are 9 years later, and we haven't turned back from our change because we've gotten the results that we would not have gotten had we just lather, rinse, repeated, done someone else's checklist that doesn't know my child.
Mhm.
And so it was very scary to make that transition, but our kids have flourished and they are who they are, and it's beautiful. And just seeing their gifts and talents on display and seeing them learn, um, you know, skills and perfect skills and things like that. It's so beautiful to watch that I can't imagine doing it any other way.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so one last question. What encouragement or steps can you give our mamas if they don't quite know what their why is and they maybe they're trying to define it? Can y'all give maybe one or two ideas to help them move into that direction? This will be our last question. I know
I-
that's a crazy question. Is that a
I'll
crazy?
go. I'll
Yeah.
go. So, an extension of what Heather and Carla were saying, you know your child better than anybody. And there is no better expert on your child than you. So, if you are wondering why, remember that first, that your child, you know where they need support, you know where they're going to shine and just go off on their own. I think that for me, as a starting, 7.5 years ago as a desperation homeschooler, and now I have become a joy homeschooler, like Carla, like Heather, like Stephanie, everybody. I try to find the joy in it. And I think for me, I want our daughter, just like our son, learn. And I love hearing our son tell things to our daughter that I used to tell him. Like, I used to tell him, I want you to enjoy learning. And he tells that to her. And that gives me joy because I think that, I mean, I think that God doesn't want us to see learning as, another thing,
Yeah.
and I think often, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, unfortunately, our kids lose their spirit of joy when they get more and more into learning. So for me, I think your why, if you're not sure or you're not ready to like jump off that diving board, think about what joy do you want in your homeschool, and make that. I want my kid to thrive, but I also want them to enjoy something, or I want us to be able to have a day that we can go out in nature and take a walk or go on a field trip or something. it, I think a big part of that why is, like, and you said, Devin, it's in your mission statement, you want them to be happy. For me, I want them to have joy in learning. And
Mhm.
that's going to look different for every child in
Yeah.
your, even in your family. My daughter's joy looks much different than my son's joy.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I think that should be something that to remind us, okay, this thought of homeschooling came into my head, and here are more thoughts to reassure that learning should be a joy-filled experience. And it's not always going to be. I mean, it's funny when you say bad days. For me, I was like, bad months. What are you kidding? Bad days? I've had bad months, where I've just crawled in the fetal
And they
position.
happen.
And they do. But again, remember the why. Remember how the spark was put in you and for what reason. And it's going to change. But I think for me, and every day is not joy. I mean, oh my goodness, especially with a 6-year-old daughter with full of sass, it's like, oh my goodness, okay, how am I going to do this? But you can do this. You can do this.
Yeah, I think it's important, to ask God, to ask God as you seek to honor him, what's best for my family. You want to do, we want to do what's best for our family. And so, we can talk to him about our ideas and ask for his help and, in implementing those. That's when my homeschooling just totally did a 180, is when I started truly relying on God and asking for his help. And knowing that he'd enable me. And I did not do that for the first couple years, and we can see the drastic change.
Yeah, because he always has a plan.
Always has a plan.
Yeah, there's always a plan. Okay, anybody else?
I just have one thing that I want to add is that because Devin, I know in our groups we have mamas right now that are public schooling. We have mamas right now that are private schooling, and we have mamas that are doing the traditional types of homeschooling that what we all in this group talk about homeschooling. And we want you to know that no matter what method of schooling you choose the one that's right for you and your family, and we're all supportive of that. Know that, and everybody in this panel is 100% supportive of that. We have all just fallen in love with homeschooling and reaped significant benefits from homeschooling. So know that we support you no matter what you choose. And we're here to help you in that journey, wherever that journey leads you. We are here for you. So I just had to add that for just a second.
Yes, that is good. Okay, so we're going to wrap up. I am so thankful my mamas came to hang out with me this morning.
Thanks, Devin.
And talk
It's been fun.
and wise. Yeah, we always have the best time when we have panels. I think they're my favorite. They really are. So thank you, mamas, and let us
Thanks
know
everybody for joining us.
Yes, and when y'all have time, post how people can find you in the comments. So in case they want to find. I know we have 3 authors, and I really think Heather needs to write a book too. On her,
give me about 5 more years.
Everything else she does, but Heather you do a lot of support with a lot of moms, don't you?
Yeah, I used to do a whole lot more, but what I've really transitioned to right now is doing support help for homeschool moms who are working from home and trying to do both. I tend to get more of those mamas because it is a different type of juggling, and the balance of fitting it all in and learning to let things go. So I do a lot of that, and then actually lately it's mentoring some of the graduates into doing what I do. I'm actually looking to take on 2 apprentices this before Christmas. So
that is amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's been really neat just to see that's the thing about homeschooling. And once you fall in love with it, you realize that you spend, it's a lifetime of learning. It's not just your kids that do that, it's you too. And because I've taught myself a whole new career in less than 5 years, and to support us. And if I had not had the skills that I learned from all those years of homeschooling, I mean, that's really what prepped me to do the next thing, which was like a surprise benefit, but yeah. So
that's how homeschooling is. There are surprise benefits, like I said earlier, is having our relationships are so much deeper than what I ever expected it to happen. So know that as you define your wise, mama, One of your whys can be those benefits, and you don't have to have a reason to homeschool. Desire to homeschool is reason enough. It's okay. But anyway, we are really glad. I mean, have a great day. We're gonna have to wrap this up. We could go all day long. We're having fun. But y'all have a great day.
Thank
We'll
you.
see y'all soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.